The year was 1969, a time when the eyes of the world were transfixed on the Apollo 11 mission, the historic journey that would send Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins to the moon. But what the public didn't know, what no one knew, was that another mission had already been initiated, one so secret that it wasn't recorded in any history books or televised broadcasts. This mission was mine, and it wasn't just about planting flags and taking steps. It was something far more dangerous. We were called Lunar X, a covert division of NASA that operated in the shadows. Our mission wasn't to land on the moon and return. Our objective was to explore the far side of the moon, the dark side, where strange radio signals had been detected in the years leading up to Apollo 11. Those signals had been written off as cosmic noise, but deep within the highest ranks of NASA and the U.S. military, there were whispers of an unknown intelligence. When I was first selected for the mission, I couldn't believe it. Commander Alex Walker, handpicked for a mission that could change the course of human history. Or so I thought. The secrecy was suffocating. Even my closest family couldn't know where I was going or why. They only knew I was leaving on routine training with the space program. The weeks leading up to the launch were surreal. Unlike the Apollo astronauts, we trained in isolation, away from the media circus that surrounded the public mission. We weren't preparing for glory, we were preparing for survival. My crew was composed of some of the most brilliant minds in aerospace and defense. There was Dr. Evelyn Hayes, a genius in astrophysics who had spent her entire career studying celestial bodies. Captain Samuel Burns, a hardened military officer with decades of combat experience. And Lieutenant Mark Davis, our communications specialist who had cracked codes and intercepted signals from across the world. They were more than just my team. They were the only people I could trust with my life. The technology we were using was unlike anything that had ever been made public. Our spacecraft, codenamed Obsidian, was designed to avoid detection by any foreign power. But more importantly, it could traverse the shadowy regions of the moon that no one had ever dared explore. Unlike the Apollo landers, which were designed for short lunar stays, Obsidian could remain in orbit for weeks, hidden from prying eyes. It had stealth capabilities and was equipped with advanced propulsion systems, allowing us to navigate the moon's most treacherous terrains. Before we left, we were briefed by top-level military officials. "Your mission is simple," they told us. "Locate the source of the signals on the far side of the moon. Document everything. If there is extraterrestrial activity, your goal is to assess the threat level and return safely. There is to be no communication with Earth unless absolutely necessary. If you fail, no one will come for you. You're on your own." There was no room for doubt. We were going to uncover something unprecedented, but none of us could predict what we would find. On the day of our launch, the air was thick with tension. The world watched as Apollo 11 lifted off into the sky, oblivious to our parallel mission. Obsidian launched in the dead of night from a hidden base in the Nevada desert. The only witnesses were the mission controllers in a windowless bunker miles beneath the Earth's surface. As we ascended into the inky void of space, I looked out of the small porthole window, watching the Earth grow smaller. It was beautiful, but I knew better than to get sentimental. Our mission was not a voyage of exploration, but one of necessity. The journey to the moon was quiet, far quieter than any of us expected. Without the fanfare of television cameras and the knowledge of millions watching, there was an eerie sense of isolation. Our radios were silent except for the occasional check-in with command. We were alone, venturing into the unknown. After days of travel, we entered lunar orbit. The dark side of the moon loomed before us, an endless expanse of shadow and craters. This was a place where no human had ever set foot. The far side of the moon was a mystery, hidden from view and bathed in eternal darkness. As we prepared for our descent, a strange feeling settled in my gut. Something was wrong. I couldn't shake the sensation that we were being watched, though I had no idea by whom or by what. Our landing site was a deep crater, far from the smooth plains that Apollo 11 would soon touch down on. The surface of the moon on this side was jagged and hostile, filled with cracks and ridges that seemed to swallow the light from our landing module's headlights. As we descended, I caught a glimpse of something strange on the horizon, shadows that didn't belong to rocks or craters. I dismissed it as a trick of the light, but my instincts screamed otherwise. When we finally touched down, the silence was deafening. Unlike the barren, sunlit plains of the moon's near side, the dark side felt alive. The landscape was more alien than we had imagined, with towering rock formations and deep fissures that disappeared into the blackness below. The terrain felt unnatural, as though it had been carved by something, or someone, long ago. "Walker, you seeing this?" Burns's voice crackled over the comms as he peered out of the module's window. "It doesn't look right." I didn't respond immediately. I was too busy staring at the instruments. Our radar was picking up something, an anomaly deep beneath the surface, directly below our landing site. It wasn't a natural formation, that much was clear. It had structure, shape. Dr. Hayes's eyes widened as she analyzed the data. "This isn't a crater," she whispered. "There's something down there." We prepared for our first EVA, our extravehicular activity. Climbing down the ladder of the module, I felt the gravity pull at my body, lighter than Earth's, but still tangible. My boots hit the surface with a soft thud, and for a brief moment I thought about Armstrong's famous words. But this wasn't a giant leap for mankind. It was a step into the unknown. The moment my team set foot on the moon's surface, I knew there was no turning back. Every step we took was toward something ancient and hidden, something that didn't want to be found. The dark side of the moon held secrets, and we were about to uncover the first of them. The air inside our suits felt stifling as we ventured further from the safety of our landing module. Each of us was tethered by thin lifelines, stretching back like spider threads to the only thing that connected us to Earth. As we moved deeper into the moon's shadow, something about the terrain unsettled me. The surface beneath our feet wasn't just rock and dust. It was different, as though it had been disturbed recently. There was a subtle texture to the ground, like ripples that spread across the lunar soil. It wasn't natural. The crater we had landed in seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, invisible to the eye, but felt in the pit of our stomachs. The instruments confirmed our suspicions. There was something beneath us, something metallic and structured, too organized to be a natural phenomenon. It stretched deep into the moon, far beyond the reach of our sensors. "What the hell is this?" Captain Burns muttered, scanning the ground with his equipment. Dr. Hayes's voice was low, almost a whisper. "This isn't rock. It's something else." She knelt down, brushing the lunar dust away from a strange, smooth surface. It was black and reflective, not unlike obsidian, but it pulsed faintly under our lights. Suddenly, Davis's voice cut through the comms. "I'm picking up a signal, stronger now, coming from beneath us." "What kind of signal?" I asked, my voice tight. The air felt heavier, even though we were in the vacuum of space. "I don't know," Davis replied, his voice laced with confusion. "It's not like anything I've ever seen. It's not natural. But it's not human either." That was when we felt it, a rumble beneath our feet. It started small, a tremor, then grew stronger until the ground beneath us seemed to crack open. We stumbled back as the surface began to shift. Dust rose into the air as something emerged from beneath the moon's surface. A door, a massive, ancient door, camouflaged beneath layers of dust and debris. It slid open with a low mechanical hum, revealing a passageway leading into the depths of the moon. Instinct screamed at me to leave, to get back to the module and return to Earth. but we had our orders. We were explorers, after all. There was no turning back now. "Walker," Burns said, his voice shaky. "What the hell are we looking at?" I shook my head, unable to answer. The passage before us was dark, lined with strange symbols that glowed faintly in the dim light. It led downward, spiraling into the unknown. We had no choice but to go inside. We descended slowly, cautiously. The passage was cold, much colder than the lunar surface. Every step echoed through the silent corridor. My heart pounded in my chest as I led the way, scanning the walls for any sign of danger. The deeper we went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. It was as if the very air down here was hostile, pressing against us, trying to force us back. Then we saw them. At first, I thought they were statues, humanoid figures carved from the same black material as the door. But as we got closer, I realized with horror that they weren't statues at all. They were bodies, human bodies, frozen in place, trapped in some kind of suspended animation. Their faces were contorted in expressions of terror, their eyes wide and vacant. There were dozens of them, lined up against the walls, their hands reaching out as if in a final plea for help. "Oh my God," Hayes whispered, her voice shaking. What happened to them?" Before I could respond, Burns grabbed my arm. "Walker, we need to get out of here. Now." But it was too late. The moment we reached the center of the chamber, a strange sound filled the air. A low, rhythmic hum that seemed to come from all around us. The walls began to glow with an eerie blue light, and suddenly, the bodies lining the walls began to move. Their limbs twitched, their heads jerked violently from side to side as if they were waking from a long slumber. We backed away, but there was nowhere to run. The floor beneath us began to shift, revealing a circular platform that descended even further into the moon's core. We were trapped. As we descended deeper, the chamber grew darker and colder. The humming sound grew louder, reverberating through our suits and into our bones. Then we saw it. A massive, pulsating structure at the center of the chamber. It was unlike anything I had ever seen. A towering mass of organic material that pulsed with a sickly green light. It looked alive, almost as if it were breathing. And it was watching us. "Is that an alien?" Davis asked, his voice trembling. I couldn't speak. My mind couldn't comprehend what I was seeing. This wasn't just an alien. It was something far worse. It was a living organism, and it was connected to everything around us. The walls, the bodies, the technology. It was all part of this massive, sentient entity. Suddenly, the platform stopped, and the entity pulsed violently. A wave of energy shot through the chamber, and I felt it hit me like a freight train. My vision blurred, and I collapsed to the floor. When I looked up, I saw Burns and Davis writhing in pain, their bodies convulsing as the alien entity reached out to them with long, tendril-like appendages. The tendrils wrapped around them, pulling them toward the mass at the center of the room. "No!" I screamed, but it was no use. Burns and Davis were gone, swallowed by the alien organism. Their screams echoed in my ears as their bodies were absorbed, their minds destroyed. I could feel the entity probing my thoughts, reaching into my mind, searching for something. It was as if it were trying to understand me, trying to transform me into one of them. I struggled to fight back, but the pain was overwhelming. I could feel myself slipping away, my thoughts growing foggy. But then, just as I was about to lose consciousness, the entity released me. It let me go. I stumbled back, gasping for air. My vision cleared, and I saw Dr. Hayes standing next to me, her face pale and terrified. She hadn't been touched by the alien entity, but she had seen everything. "We need to get out of here," she said, her voice barely a whisper. I nodded, my mind racing. We had to leave. But as we turned to flee, the entity spoke. Not in words, but in my mind. It wasn't finished with us. It had chosen me to be its messenger, to carry its warning back to Earth. I didn't understand what it wanted, but I knew one thing for certain. The moon wasn't ours. It belonged to something far older, far more dangerous. We barely made it back to the surface. As the door sealed behind us, I looked up at the stars and knew that nothing would ever be the same. The truth about the moon was too terrifying to comprehend. And I knew, deep down, that I could never tell anyone what we had found. Not yet. For years after the mission, I tried to live a normal life. I was hailed as a hero by my country, though no one knew what really happened out there. On the surface, I played the part well, smiling in interviews, attending galas in my honor, giving speeches about exploration and the future of space travel. But beneath it all, I was haunted. The memories of what happened on the dark side of the moon never left me. Not really. At night, when I closed my eyes, I would see them. Burns, Davis, Hayes. I could still hear their screams, feel the sickening pulse of that alien entity as it tried to dig its way into my mind. I had escaped, but I hadn't been left untouched. Something inside me had changed. I could feel it, like a splinter in my mind, buried deep but always there, itching to surface. And then came the dreams. It started small, just flashes at first. A glimpse of the alien chamber, the tendrils writhing in the darkness, the glowing symbols on the walls. I would wake up drenched in sweat, my heart pounding. But it was easy to dismiss at first. Nightmares, my therapist called them. Survivor's guilt, he said, a perfectly normal reaction to trauma. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. The dreams got worse. I would hear their voices, Burns, Davis, and even Hayes, calling out to me from the depths of my subconscious. They weren't angry or frightened anymore. No, their voices were different. They were pleading, desperate. "Help us. You have to come back." At first, I ignored it. I told myself it was just my mind playing tricks on me. But the voices wouldn't stop. Night after night, I was plagued by them. And then, one night, it happened. I dreamed of the moon. Not just flashes or fragments, but a full, vivid dream. I was back there, standing on the surface, looking down at the place where the alien entity had been buried. Only this time, the ground was broken open, and the passage was no longer sealed. The door was wide open, beckoning me inside. And that's when I heard it. The voice. Not my crewmates' voices, but something else. Something ancient. Something far older than humanity. It spoke directly into my mind, a low, rumbling whisper that sent chills down my spine. "Come back. It's time." I woke up in a cold sweat, gasping for air. My heart was racing, my hands trembling. I knew then that it wasn't just a dream. It was a summons. The decision. For weeks, I tried to push it away, to ignore the growing pull in the back of my mind. I drowned myself in work, trying to keep busy. But it was always there, lurking just beneath the surface. No matter what I did, the dreams kept coming. The voices kept calling. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know the truth. I started going through the old mission logs, searching for anything I might have missed. The official records were sanitized, of course. Everything about our discovery on the moon had been wiped clean. But I still had my own notes, my own memories. I combed through them, looking for patterns, for clues. That's when I found it. A single line of code, buried deep in the data we'd collected from the lunar surface. It was a transmission, one that had been sent from the alien entity to somewhere beyond our solar system. I hadn't noticed it before, but now it stood out like a beacon. The transmission was a message. It was a call for help. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. The aliens we had encountered on the moon, they weren't just invaders. They were refugees, fleeing something far worse. Something that had been following them across the stars for millennia. And now, that something was coming for Earth. I knew then what I had to do. I had to go back. Not just for my crewmates, but for the survival of humanity itself. The aliens on the moon had been trying to warn us, to prepare us for what was coming. And I was the only one who could stop it. But I couldn't do it alone. I reached out to the only people I could trust, those who had been part of the original mission's planning, the few who knew the truth about what we'd found on the moon. At first, they thought I was crazy. "We buried that mission," one of them said. "The public can't know." But I wasn't asking for permission. I was asking for help. I told them everything, the dreams, the voices, the transmission. At first, they were skeptical, but then I showed them the code. The transmission data was undeniable. It had come from deep within the moon's surface, and it was still broadcasting. "There's no time," I said, my voice trembling. "If we don't act now, it'll be too late." One by one, they agreed. We didn't have the resources for a full-scale mission, but we had enough to get back to the moon. This time, it wouldn't be a government operation. This time, it would be private, off the books. No one could know. The preparations were quick and dirty. We had to move fast before anyone noticed what we were doing. Within a few weeks, we had secured a small shuttle and enough supplies for the trip. It wasn't much, but it would get us there. That's all that mattered. As we launched from Earth, the weight of what we were about to do settled over me. I hadn't been back to space since that fateful mission, and now I was returning to the very place that had haunted my nightmares for years. The journey was long and quiet. My new crew was small, a handful of trusted experts who had been briefed on the situation. But none of them knew what it was really like. None of them had seen the things I had seen. As we approached the moon, the anxiety began to build. My heart raced as we prepared for landing. This time, we weren't going to the light side. This time, we were heading straight for the dark side, the place where it all began. As the shuttle touched down on the lunar surface, I felt a strange sense of déjà vu. The landscape was the same, untouched by time. But something was different. The air felt heavier. The ground beneath my feet seemed to pulse with a familiar energy. I looked up at the sky and felt the pull again, stronger than ever before. The moon was calling me. The aliens were calling me. And this time, I couldn't ignore them. We exited the shuttle in silence, each step a reminder of the nightmare that awaited us below. I led the way, just like before, back to the same spot where we had first discovered the passage. The door was still there, sealed and silent. But as I reached out to touch it, the door slid open, just like in my dream. The passage beckoned us inside, and this time, I wasn't alone. The aliens had called me back for a reason. This time, we were ready. As we descended into the depths of the alien structure, the atmosphere shifted. The air was thick with a palpable energy, and the walls glowed faintly with an iridescent light, pulsating as if they were alive. Each step echoed, a reminder of the weight of history and the horrors that had unfolded in this very place. The passage seemed to stretch on endlessly, drawing us deeper into the heart of the moon. I led my small team with a mix of determination and dread. Behind me, I could hear whispers of concern and excitement as my companions processed the surreal environment. We all felt it, the sense of being watched, the feeling that unseen eyes were observing our every move. It was a reminder of the trauma I had experienced years before, and I steeled myself against the memories that threatened to overwhelm me. At the end of the corridor, we reached a large chamber that opened up before us, revealing a vast expanse filled with bizarre technology. Glimmering machinery hummed quietly, and at the center of the room stood a massive structure, a tower of twisting metal and light. It looked like the heart of the alien facility, and I felt an inexplicable pull toward it. As I approached, the energy intensified. The room was alive with sound, a chorus of voices speaking in unison. It wasn't just the haunting echoes of my old crewmates. It was something deeper, something collective. "Welcome," a voice echoed, resonating within my mind. It was not just a sound, it was a sensation, a feeling that wrapped around me like a shroud. I looked around, trying to locate the source, but there was no visible being. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice steady despite the fear gnawing at my gut. "We are the Guardians," the voice replied, "the protectors of this realm. We have been watching you." Suddenly, images flooded my mind, visions of a distant world, of beings similar to the aliens I had encountered. But these were different. They were graceful and ethereal, their forms shifting like smoke. They bore a striking resemblance to the creatures that had transformed my teammates, yet their intentions felt different. They showed me scenes of a war-torn planet, a civilization on the brink of destruction, and the alien species desperately fleeing for their lives. "We fled from the shadows," the voice continued, "those who seek to dominate and consume. The ones you witnessed transforming your crew were not our kin. They are a faction, a scourge that hunts us across the stars. We are here to warn you." My heart raced as the realization sank in. The beings I had believed to be invaders were actually refugees, victims of a greater evil. "What do you want from us?" I asked, my voice trembling with urgency. "Help us," the Guardians implored. "You are the chosen one, the one who escaped. You possess knowledge of both worlds. You can bridge the gap." I could hardly comprehend what they were asking. "How can I help? I'm just one man. Your knowledge of your world, your understanding of technology, combined with our power, can forge an alliance. Together, we can fight against the encroaching darkness. You must unite your people against the threat that looms." I felt a swell of determination rise within me. It wasn't just about saving my old friends. It was about protecting humanity from the horrors that had followed these aliens to Earth. I glanced back at my team, who had been listening in awe, their eyes wide with disbelief and hope. "We can't do this alone," I said, turning to them. "We need to gather more support. We need to tell the world." "But how?" one of my teammates, Dr. Sarah Chen, interjected. "If we reveal this, no one will believe us. We'll be branded as crazies." "They will believe," I insisted. "The Guardians can help us communicate. We must form a coalition. This is our chance to stop the darkness from consuming our world." The Guardians responded with a low hum that vibrated through the air. "We can provide you with the means to communicate with your people. The choice is yours. You can let fear guide you or embrace the truth and lead." With that, a shimmering orb of energy appeared before me, pulsating with light. It hovered in the air, beckoning me closer. I reached out tentatively, and as my fingers brushed against its surface, a surge of knowledge flooded my mind. Images and information cascaded through me. A blueprint for technology that could enhance our defenses. a method of communication that could reach beyond Earth. I could feel the power coursing through me, the weight of responsibility pressing down. "I accept," I said firmly. "I will unite with you. We will fight together." The Guardians began to share their knowledge. They showed us how to harness the energy of the moon to create a defensive barrier that would protect our planet from the impending threat. We worked tirelessly in that chamber, combining our technology with theirs. It was an intense collaboration, a merging of worlds and ideas. As the days passed, we trained and prepared for what was to come. I felt the presence of my teammates, Burns, Davis, Hayes, pushing me forward, urging me not to give in to fear. They had been transformed by the very darkness we now faced, and I was determined to avenge their plight. Soon, we finished constructing a small but powerful device that would allow us to transmit the truth to Earth. It was our lifeline, our chance to rally humanity before it was too late. When we were ready, I activated the device. The energy surged, and the room lit up with a brilliant glow. I felt the Guardians' presence around me, their collective energy fueling the message. "This is the truth," I declared. "We are not alone. We are fighting for our survival." As the transmission broadcasted across the stars, I could only hope it would reach those who needed to hear it. "We have come to warn you of a great danger," I said into the device, my voice steady and clear. "An alien faction threatens not just the moon, but Earth itself. We must unite against them." Suddenly, the room shuddered. Alarms blared, and the glow of the Guardians flickered ominously. "They are here," the voice warned. "We must act now." With the device still transmitting, we raced back through the chamber. The passage was alive with activity. The Guardians were rallying, preparing for the confrontation ahead. My heart pounded in my chest as I emerged into the open air. The vast lunar landscape spread out before me. In the distance, I saw them. The dark ships approaching, gliding through the lunar dust like harbingers of doom. The familiar, sickening feeling returned, a reminder of the horror I had escaped. But this time, I wasn't alone. We were ready. "Prepare the defenses," I shouted, my voice ringing out over the chaos. The Guardians surged forward, their ethereal forms transforming into solid energy barriers that shimmered in the darkness. My team rallied beside me, adrenaline surging as we activated our own devices, ready to fight for our lives and for the future of our world. As the ships descended, the atmosphere crackled with tension. We stood together, humans and Guardians alike, united against the encroaching darkness. I could feel the weight of responsibility heavy on my shoulders, but also a flicker of hope. "We will fight," I shouted, raising my hand to signal our defense. "For humanity, for the ones we lost." The first blasts of energy fired from the enemy ships, illuminating the lunar landscape with bursts of light. But we were ready. The Guardians unleashed their power, a wave of energy cascading through the air, intercepting the incoming fire. The impact reverberated through the ground, shaking us to our core. "Keep pushing," I yelled, coordinating with my team as we activated our defenses. The battle raged, and though we faced overwhelming odds, we fought with every ounce of strength we had. The Guardians fought alongside us, their energy intertwining with our technology, creating a barrier of light that pushed back against the darkness. And then, as if summoned by the chaos, a figure emerged from the enemy ships, a leader, a dark silhouette against the backdrop of the stars. I recognized it immediately. It was the same entity that had transformed my friends. My heart raced, a surge of anger coursing through me. This was the moment of reckoning. "You cannot stop us," the entity boomed, its voice echoing through the void. You are but insects in the grand design. But I would not back down. You underestimate the power of unity, I shouted, rallying my team and the Guardians. We fight for more than survival. We fight for freedom. As the first rays of sunlight broke through the lunar horizon, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. We had forged an alliance, one that spanned galaxies, and I knew we were just beginning to understand the depths of our shared existence. We will tell the world, I declared, looking at my team and the Guardians. We will unite humanity against the darkness, and we will prepare for whatever comes next. The Guardians shimmered, their forms brightening in agreement. Together, we can ensure that darkness never consumes your world again. As we stood there, on the moon that had been both a place of horror and hope, I felt the weight of our victory. It was not just a battle won, but the dawn of a new era, an alliance forged in the fires of adversity. And in that moment, I knew, together, we would face whatever challenges lay ahead, united against the shadows of the universe.